1997 had been a rough year for Sega outside of Japan. The 16-bit Mega Drive/Genesis and the 8-bit handheld Game Gear had been discontinued, and the last games for these platforms were trickling out. To make matters worse, sales of the 32-bit Sega Saturn in the West hadn't been kind to them since the disastrous premature launch in 1995. Sonic X-treme had been in development since 1994, starting as a Genesis game, then a 32X game, and finally a Saturn game. But by 1996, so many development issues led to the game being cancelled. The Sega Saturn never got an exclusive mainline Sonic game. Even a port of Sonic the Fighters, an arcade fighting game by Sega AM2 featuring Sonic characters, was planned for the Saturn, but would eventually meet the same fate as Sonic X-treme. In 1996, all the Saturn got in terms of Sonic was a port of Sonic 3D Blast. It may have been a commercial success, but it just wasn't enough to help the Saturn. Then along came Sonic R, a racing title that received mainly negative reviews. But one Sonic game did sit well with Saturn owners. It wasn't a new game, it was a compilation. A way of bringing the original Sonic games from the Genesis to the 32-bit platform. It's Sonic Jam tonight on Gaming Delight. Sonic Jam consists of 4 Sonic games: Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic & Knuckles. It also includes Sonic World, a 3D environment. Featured here is a mission list, such as getting a certain number of rings, turning a certain number of posts red, and or finding tails in a certain amount of time. Only by completing every mission can you see the credits of this game. This part of the game is also compatible with the Saturn 3D control pad. Speaking of which, did you know that Sonic World was developed using the same game engine for Nights into Dreams? Sonic World was also part of an experiment to see how Sonic Team would adjust to the blue blur in 3D, and it didn't do so badly. Wow! Imagine how beautifully Sonic X-treme would have turned out had it not been cancelled. Also, the interactive museum features manuals, concept artwork, character portfolios, commercials, music, and Sonic CD videos. Now for the real meat and potatoes, the compilation of games. It's important to point out that these games weren't emulated. They were all ported from the ground up to run on the Sega Saturn. Not that it was difficult, mind you, since the system already has a Motorola 68000 CPU inside, similar to the Genesis. Sonic Team really did great with this, but I only wish Sega had taken advantage of the CPU and simply made an inexpensive adapter that supported Genesis/Mega Drive cartridges. Plus, seeing the Genesis games ported this way makes you wonder if Sega could have made a new 2D Sonic game exclusive for the Saturn. Just check out Sonic Mania on modern platforms and you'll understand what I mean. Anyway, visually, each Sonic game was perfectly replicated. But it's in the sound department where things are different. The music remains untouched, though it either gets cut off without warning, or it starts late. The sound effect when Sonic does his spin dash is completely different. The effect when Sonic collects rings is slightly changed. And when you pop a balloon in Sonic 3, you'll get an exploding sound. Very odd. Those are just some examples. Each of these games has 3 different difficulty modes: easy, normal, and original. Easy makes the games much easier and faster to complete. Less stages, less hits to take down a boss, etc. For example, In the final zone of Sonic 1, Robotnik attacks Sonic with just one hydraulic press at a time instead of two. Normal keeps every stage and the hit requirements intact, but with extra rings and lesser challenges. For example, the final boss stages of Sonic 1 and 2 give you extra rings so that one hit wouldn't end the game, unless in Sonic 1, Robotnik smushed Sonic. Original retains the game's original challenge, but there are a few drawbacks. For one, it's impossible to claim all 6 Chaos Emeralds in the easy mode of Sonic 1. You can only play one act per zone, and there are no giant rings in the Scrap Brain zone, which is a bummer. Sonic 2, 3, and Knuckles don't have this problem, as there are multiple ways to play a special stage in a single act. The only way you can get the good ending for Sonic 1 in easy mode is through cheat devices like the Action Replay Plus. Sonic & Knuckles maintains its lock-on technology in Sonic Jam. Just like with the original cartridges, play it with Sonic 1 and you get the Blue Spear minigame. Sonic 2 gives you Knuckles in Sonic 2. Sonic 3 gives you the full Sonic 3 and Knuckles experience. Now in all these games you also have Time Attack, where you can record how fast you can finish a stage. Then there's Special Stage, where you tackle all the special stages. Personally, I prefer the latter. It gives me good practice for when I play the actual games, though it can be frustrating, namely some of the Super Emerald stages in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now here are a few additional cons. Sonic Jam may be a decent compilation, but it's nowhere near the greatness of Super Mario All-Stars. The games may have been ported from the ground up rather than emulated, but aside from a few small details, they're graphically the exact same thing. Yes, there were a few features All-Stars lacked, but what All-Stars lacked in extra features, it made up for in its full-fledged remakes of the original 8-bit Mario games. At any rate, this is a fairly decent compilation for those who want to get a taste of Sonic on the Sega Saturn after Sonic Extreme got canned. But another con I should bring up. Why just the 4 games in the compilation? What about the spin-offs? Well, except for Sonic 3D Blast, seeing as it hadn't been a full year since it was released before Sonic Jam hit the market, and 3D Blast was already ported to the Saturn as a standalone game. But what about Sonic Spinball and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine? Well, it could be that since the games weren't emulated, there just wasn't enough demand to justify porting the 2 spin-offs from the ground up. And what about Sonic CD and Knuckles Chaotix? Not enough space, perhaps? Oh well. It's hard to find any sales information on Sonic Jam, but I can tell you that it didn't make the top 15. Seeing how poorly the Sega Saturn fared outside of Japan since launch day, I'm not surprised. Not only that, but by the time Sonic Jam was released, interest in the Saturn was waning more than ever. And with the Nintendo 64 out and Final Fantasy VII making waves for the PlayStation, Sega's market share in North America plummeted to a mere 12%, compared to Sony's 47% and Nintendo's 40%. Shipments of the Saturn went from a downpour to a trickle in the States, and Sega wound up selling only 1.8 million units there overall. Despite the low sales numbers, reviews of Sonic Jam were quite good. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a score of 8.125 out of 10. One reviewer stated, "Sure, the 16-bit Sonic games may be old, but they're still very playable today." GamePro gave it an average score of 4.25 out of 5, stating, "While it may be more Sonic than anyone really needs, Sonic Jam does make a great permanent record of all the original Sonic titles, and will be a fine addition to any Saturn library." The games in Sonic Jam may not look any different than the Genesis games, but the fact that they were remade from the ground up rather than emulated is fantastic. If you want the game for yourself, a complete copy of the Japanese or PAL version will run you about $30 to $50. The North American version goes for over $300. On the other hand, if you don't have a Saturn, there are other Sonic compilations out there, like Sonic Mega Collection, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, Sonic Classic Collection, and of course, Sonic Origins. Just like Fighter's Megamix before it, Sonic Jam also got ported to the Tiger Gamecom, but I'm not going to waste any time discussing this trashy port. Overall, Sonic Jam may not blow you away, with or without the 3D world, but if you're an enthusiast for the Sega Saturn or Sonic himself, this is definitely the game for you. Thanks again for watching Gaming Delight. Until next time, happy gaming!